The following is a production of Fenix Media. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the company or its advertisers and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.
You're listening to Be Kind, Rewind with Tim Nydell, taking you back to when movies were actually good.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
When music wasn't auto-tuned. When TV only had a few channels. And now, here's your host, Tim Nydell.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Be Kind, Rewind with your host, Tim Nydell, which is me, of course. You can find me online. It's at Tim_Nydell or my website, timnydell.com. And this episode is very fitting, actually, for the title of the show, Be Kind, Rewind, because I have Alan Payne on the episode today, and he just came out with a book called Built to Fail, the inside story of Blockbuster's inevitable bust. And he definitely knows a thing or two about Blockbuster because he pretty much ran a lot of the stores longer than anybody else. As you guys probably know, there's only one Blockbuster left in the whole country, I think probably in the whole world, and that's in Bend, Oregon. But Alan is the guy who owned the branches up in Alaska, and those were the last ones to close down. He actually sent me a copy of the book, and I read through it. It's a great read, it really is. You learn a lot about the start of Blockbuster and, of course, the end of Blockbuster, a day that I actually remember. I remember when they closed down the stores near me. It really hit close to home because I'm definitely a Blockbuster kid. Went there all the time as a older kid and a teenager. Pretty much every Friday I spent in a Blockbuster. Again, his book is called Built to Fail, the inside story of Blockbuster's inevitable bust. You can find it on Amazon. Right now I'm looking on Amazon. The Kindle version is only $6.49. That's super cheap. Hardcover is $26.21, paperback $15.99 with Prime shipping. And I read through it. It's a great read. I really do recommend it. And here's my interview with the author himself, Alan Payne.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day who was younger than you. I was trying to explain to him what a VCR was.
Wow.
It was his early 20s, and he honestly did not know what a VHS cassette was. So we were a little bit dated.
Yeah, I'm 41, so I grew up in that era.
Okay.
That's great. Even my kids know what a VCR is. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was trying to explain it to him. I don't think he ever quite understood. Yeah, we used to have this little thing that you stuck in this clunky machine. Yeah,
and sometimes a full movie wouldn't even fit on a one VHS. You had to have it on two different VHSs and flip it out midway through.
Yeah, in fact, that was particularly the case with Beta. Because Beta was evidently those tapes couldn't hold as much. So yeah.
Oh boy.
Those were the days, huh?
Yes, they were, man.
But you remember them.
For sure. I was 100% an 80s kid, so I don't remember the first time I went to Blockbuster. I was living in Reno, so I don't know when they came to be in Reno. I do remember vividly it would have been the early 90s. For sure, I remember going to Blockbuster. But video stores, I went there all the time.
It really took, I guess it took until the mid-90s before they were kind of everywhere. One of the most interesting parts of the story from my perspective is that Blockbuster was never worth more than they were in 1994.
Wow.
One of the big motivations for me writing the book was, not only was it such a huge part of my life, but but the story I don't think has been told with very much accuracy. It really was not the Netflix that we know today that did Blockbuster in.
Because I totally thought that was it. I thought it was the digital era what screwed them over.
Yeah, it's easy for, looking back to blend all that together. But Netflix did not stream a movie until 2007. And really it wasn't a significant part of their business until a few years after that. And by then, Blockbuster was already done.
Yeah. And how crazy is it that they had the chance to buy Netflix?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Do you think the whole story would be completely different nowadays if they bought it, or would they have still mess it up.
Well, if the deal was that Reed Hastings wanted to literally go to work for him. He wanted to be their partner.
Oh, wow.
So had they had the wisdom to let Reed and his team, who also included Ted Sarandos at the time, if he would have allowed them to do their thing, yeah, it'd be the same thing, I assume, if they'd allowed them independence.
Yeah.
But, if Blockbuster would have done it, there's really no evidence that I can see that they would have done much with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
All right. So before we continue on about your upcoming book, tell me more about yourself and how you got involved with Blockbuster.
I got into it in kind of an unconventional way because back in the 80s, I was in the grocery store business.
Wow.
I worked for a company called HEB. Have you ever heard of HEB?
I think I've seen the initials. So I think I have.
If you've never lived in Texas, they're a huge company. They're a $27 billion company. That's their annual by sales, and they really dominate Texas in the grocery industry. And as the video business was really getting rolling back in the 80s, they decided to get in the business. Most grocery stores back then, as you probably remember, had video departments in the stores.
Yeah.
HEB did also, but what they did is they took it a step further and decided that since they owned a lot of real estate and Blockbuster was trying to lease sites from them, they decided, well, we'll just do it ourselves. So we actually opened 35 freestanding video stores that were called Video Central. And they put me in charge of running the operations of those stores. We were very, very successful against Blockbuster. We competed, most of those 35 stores competed with Blockbuster. So I learned the business from the other side. I learned it through the eyes of a grocery company, much more competitive, much more detail oriented, much more in fear of a competitor, doing something before you did it. Mm-hmm. That's where I learned the business. And we were doing very, very well. But unfortunately, HEB decided they didn't want to continue to grow the business, wanted to focus on just the food business, and they decided to sell the stores. So that's when I left and wound up with a Blockbuster franchise that owned stores in Texas and Alaska. And this was kind of a fork in the road thing because the company that wound up buying those Video Central stores was none other than Hollywood Video. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Hollywood Video?
I do actually.
Okay. They eventually became a 2,000 store chain and were really Blockbuster's only national competition. Well, they got their start by buying our stores at HEB. They only had about 10 stores at the time, and we had 35. And they had largely copied our business model. And so anyway, the long story short is that Hollywood Video, within just a couple of years, had over 500 stores. They went public, became Blockbuster's first real competitor, and within just a few years had created a real financial problem for Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. They were in financial difficulty by 1996, just a couple of years after Hollywood bought our stores. And then all that time I was with Blockbuster. So that was one of those forks in the road that the story of Blockbuster not buying Netflix was obviously a really big deal. Later on, they had opportunities to buy into the kiosk business, and they missed that too. But really, if you go way, way back, they missed out on the opportunity to buy the chain that turned out to be their largest bricks and mortar competitor as well. So anyway, that's how I wound up in the business. I didn't buy into the business the way most people did back then. It was an extremely profitable business when run right. But I didn't get a chance to become a store owner until 2000. And the company that I went to work for to run their franchise stores decided they were going to sell the stores. And in 2000, I put the money together and bought those 25 stores, and we eventually built it up to over 40 stores.
So you would have been one of the ones, I read most of the book, you would have been one of the ones that actually lost money because of the bankruptcy and everything then.
Well, we ran our business profitably for, until we closed the last store in 2018.
Okay.
But obviously, we think it was a premature closing because we think had we not been fighting Blockbuster all along the way and all the bad press that they were getting, I think we would have stayed open much longer than we did. How long, I don't know, because obviously the business was going to change dramatically. But, we still were doing a lot of business in those stores when we eventually closed them in 2018.
Yeah, because you said you were doing the Alaska one. That one was the last one to close, wasn't it? Besides the Bend, Oregon one that's still running.
Yeah. When we closed those the two last stores in Alaska, that left Ken Tischer, who owns that store in Bend, that left him as the last store.
Yeah. I'm still trying to make it up there to Bend. I'm not too far. I'm about 13-hour drive. So I need to make it one day because I just want to experience it one more time.
The great thing about Bend is it's a beautiful city. It's a great place to visit. So there's other reasons to go there other than Blockbuster.
Exactly.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
What if I told you that a tornado was going to happen tomorrow, right where you live? That it would touch down at exactly 3:17 p.m., and I told you the exact path it would take. You would, of course, prepare. You would talk with your loved ones, and you'd make a plan today. It's true, I can't tell you a tornado will strike tomorrow, but shouldn't you have a plan anyway? Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Fenix Media. Listen live and explore more great shows at fenixmedia.us.
Now, for the listeners out there that aren't quite familiar with the 80s and 90s video store experience, can you kind of paint a picture of what it was kind of like back during those decades?
You know, what I've learned in talking to people about this book is a lot of people don't remember the day that you could not watch a movie or a TV show anytime you wanted to.
Yep.
So you really have to put the whole story in context, and that's what created the mania, and it was around video stores of the 80s. When a video store opened in a neighborhood, it was an event because it would have been the first time anyone could actually watch a movie anytime they wanted to. And that seems so yesterday now, but that was the case. So you can imagine how free people felt walking into a video store and be able to pick basically anything they wanted to see and take it home and watch it. And I mean, it sounds crazy, but that was a really, really big deal in 1987 when we opened our first store. And it's why people were willing to come in and put up with the enormous crowds, the chaos of the whole thing. And sometimes because we weren't very good at it in those early years, none of us, I don't think, were prepared for the volume that these stores were doing. It was not unusual for somebody to come in and wait up to an hour to check out because it would take, our systems weren't built for it. We hadn't really figured out how to get that many customers out of the store quickly yet. We were still learning. The product was in such demand that people were happy to wait. And eventually we got it figured out, and we improved it a lot. But those first few stores back in the mid-late 80s, it was chaos, but it was fun chaos.
Yeah.
People were discovering something that was new, and they were willing to put up with a little inconvenience to get to go home and watch a movie when they wanted to. It was unbelievable, really.
I remember spending, I think it was a minimum of at least an hour and a half on Friday nights to get a movie, a minimum.
Yeah. And for the most part, people enjoyed it.
I did. I really do. I remember just strolling down, because when I watch Netflix or any kind of streaming service, the satisfaction I get from picking a movie isn't at all the same as it was walking down those aisles, flipping back the covers, reading what actors are in there.
Yeah.
I don't get the satisfaction just streaming it, and often I get bored with the movie because I'm not invested in the streaming side of movies. But renting videos, man, I was all about it every Friday night when I was a teenager.
Well, the great thing is everything was there. Mm-hmm. Where now you'd have to subscribe to at least 3 or 4 different streaming services to get everything.
Uh-huh.
Where then it was systematic. Every Tuesday the new releases showed up.
Yeah.
And that's what drew people to the stores.
It had more of the older classics,
right,
like Back to the Future out there, and of course a lot of the stores had that back room blocked off by the curtain.
Oh yeah. Now Blockbuster never did that.
Nope.
But that was a big part of the business.
Now tell me more about the book Built to Fail. Tell me about that book.
Built to Fail started coming together about 3 years ago, as when we were starting to we knew that we weren't going to last much longer, and I guess it was around sometime in 2015 or 16 that I started thinking about the whole idea of writing, and a lot of it had to do with just the amount of attention we were getting, because those last few years we were the only ones left, mm-hmm, along with Ken in Bend, Oregon. So I was getting phone calls from major media all the time, wanting to know what it was like to still be in the Blockbuster business. So I think it was just kind of a natural process to get to the point where, okay, I'm the last one in it. It's been a huge deal to me. I've been in the business for 31 years. And then I started thinking about, well, everybody seems to think that Netflix streaming is what killed Blockbuster. That, mm-hmm, I know that's not true. The problems went way back into the 90s. Blockbuster was a cash flow poor company in 1997, struggling to survive.
And that was because of the DVDs, right?
No, not yet. DVDs were just released that year. It was Blockbuster was in trouble financially in VHS days, primarily because of Hollywood Video and because of overbuilding. They built too many stores, and as I point out in the book, my opinion is about the only thing Blockbuster ever really did well was open stores faster than everybody else. They didn't run them particularly well. Back in the 90s, people thought they were well run because they were better than most, but they were easily beaten. And we had shown that when I was running the stores at HEB. They were not taking advantage of the tremendous benefits that video brought to people. They were founded by one of the great entrepreneurs in American history, Wayne Huizenga, who also built Waste Management and AutoNation.
Yeah, I read that in the book, and I was just amazed at how I never knew that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question Wayne Huizenga was a genius when it came to building companies so fast that he would leave everybody else in his dust. But he built organizations that didn't really have a whole lot of interest in how the business worked. And it's what amazed me when I left a grocery company to come to Blockbuster and found that, you know, we were running the business in much, much more detail than Blockbuster ever contemplated. And so all that built to, you know, all those years of us running a business in our franchise stores, it was completely different than what Blockbuster was doing. And that's why we lasted so long. We didn't run the business the way they did. And we kept customers engaged many, many more years than Blockbuster did by doing it differently. And I just wanted to tell that story. And really, I didn't know how I was going to tell it because I didn't know exactly what, you know, I had to really think about what people might be most interested in. So it took a long time to kind of put it all together. Yeah. But once the ideas kind of came together, it was actually really fun to write. And because it was fun to put the pieces together and figure out, okay, well, this is what happened. In some cases, I don't really know why it happened because some of the decisions they made no sense at all. But I do think I've got a pretty good understanding of what happened. And that's what's in the book.
Yeah, like I said, I finished, I think, about half of it, and I'm definitely going to finish the whole thing because Blockbuster is something that I held near to my heart. Like I said, almost every Friday I was there either getting a video game or a movie, and it's fascinating to hear what happened because I, like many other people, I was clueless on what truly happened.
That was the frustrating part to me, and you know, I hate to say it, but I think sometimes Blockbuster was clueless too.
Yeah.
There were things that they did that just it was, and you're halfway through the book. You're not to the really good stuff yet.
No spoilers.
It gets more interesting, but you know, people ask me how we lasted so long, and you know, the truth is that pretty much everything that Blockbuster believed about the business, we believed the opposite. That's how we ran things. And the good thing is as a franchisee, we had the Blockbuster brand to protect. But in terms of the inventory and the pricing and the terms and all those kind of things, we made our own decisions on that. So Blockbuster in our markets was largely what we made it, not what they made it. And we ran our own advertising, set all of our own pricing, managed our own inventory completely different than they did.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and I'm the center of attention at summer barbecues. In '96, I made some of the tastiest s'mores. And in '09, it was me, your backyard fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when a summer breeze carried one of my embers into some dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
My name is Lola Silvestri, and I'm going to be 95 this year. I was very independent. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hey everyone, let's all stop what we're doing and take a moment. You see, every moment can be kind of special. But they can be loud moments, goofy moments, dorky moments, it doesn't matter. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to when you checked on me? I don't want to leave, but remember, When I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart and don't let it quit on you. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range today. For help keeping yours at a healthy range, text PRESSURE to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to sell all your belongings and live in a commune.
These dungarees belong to all of us now, Tom.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman!
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Fenix Media. Listen live and explore more great shows at fenixmedia.us.
You know, it might be a good time to talk about how Netflix did it to Blockbuster, because, you know, what we were talking a while ago, most people think streaming did it. Well,
Yeah.
what the Netflix that and they weren't the only ones. There were other competitors that were handing it to Blockbuster, but Netflix became the largest at that time. They built a business off of renting old movies to people, and they knew they had to do it that way because their system of mailing DVDs to people was very inefficient in the new release business anyway, because new releases, the life of a new release was less than a month for the most part. And they couldn't make the economics of that work because DVDs would be in the mail and in warehouses too long. So they decided early on that they had to figure out a way to get people to want to watch old movies. That's exactly what they did. And over 80% of every DVD Netflix ever mailed somebody was something that was old.
Huh.
Blockbuster was the exact opposite. They had built their business almost exclusively on new releases. So they never really understood what Netflix was doing to them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's why we understood the business better then, because we had always believed that a Blockbuster store should be much more about new releases, where Blockbuster in the early 2000s, 90% of what they rented was a new release. In one of our Blockbuster stores, it was only about 50% of what was renting was a new release. So the experience of a customer coming into one of our Blockbuster stores versus a corporately owned Blockbuster store was completely different. People came in to shop the entire store. And in fact, in a lot of stores that we rented much more catalog than we did new releases. So we just looked at the business completely differently. And that's why, Netflix didn't have near the impact on us that they did on Blockbuster. We made a point to have everything of older movies that our customers wanted. We didn't have everything like Netflix did, but we had everything a customer ever asked for. So it was not unusual for one of our stores to have well over 20,000 pieces of catalog in the store, where Blockbuster would be 4,000 or 5,000 at the most. In fact, we had a store in Alaska that had over 30,000 in it.
Oh my God.
And we would give those numbers to Blockbuster and they would think we were nuts. But the thing is, we were renting those movies were renting over 10,000 times a week. The economics all made sense to us. And most of those movies were very inexpensive. You could buy them for $7, $8, most of them.
Now, did you ever try to talk to somebody higher up and try to tell them what you were doing different and how it was working better for you?
All the time. All the time. But I like to say, I think most franchisees, including myself, we always had a cordial relationship with Blockbuster management, but that's as far as it went. They would, I disagreed with them on just about everything that they did. And I think they would agree too, that it was never personal. It was never a personal fight or anything. It was just that they saw it differently than we did. So yeah, I constantly tried to get them convinced that there was another way to look at it. Yeah, but I never succeeded. In fact, I think it would be, well, I don't think, I know it's true. They never even really studied what we did. So I would tell them kind of the top line numbers and what was happening and how we were doing it. But that's about as far as the conversation would go. They never took an in-depth interest in understanding what we were doing. And I think a lot of it was because our approach was so foreign to their way of thinking that they just couldn't wrap their head around it.
Yeah. Scared of change or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was just a lack of curiosity. And that I guess the disappointing thing to me is that, we talked about Huizenga earlier. He was such a genius in terms of building companies, but he left in 1994. Well, that was more than a decade before Netflix ever streamed a movie. So there was ample opportunity for the management after Huizenga to correct that culture of, let's just grow and build stores. We've already got this figured out. Yeah. We're not worried about what anybody else is doing. If we open stores faster than everybody else, we'll win. Well, that was the Blockbuster approach to the business for its first decade. Unfortunately, by the time you get to the late 90s, opening stores was not the answer because the business was relatively flat by then. It never really grew much past 1998, 1999. That was the peak. It grew a little bit when DVD came along into the early 2000s, but not enough to be opening 1,000 stores every year. So what happened is that Blockbuster kept opening stores in an industry that was relatively flat, and everybody knew it was flat. It wasn't and nobody really thought it was going to grow very much because we knew that electronic delivery of some type was coming down the line. We didn't know what it was going to be. Nobody saw Netflix coming. Everybody thought it would be a telephone company or a cable company or somebody like that would figure out how to move people from video stores to the internet. It turned out to be Reed Hastings. Nobody saw that coming. And he figured out things that the media companies and the studios never figured out.
So I'm in Montana now, and we used to have a store called Hastings. He didn't create Hastings, did he?
No. Okay. Hastings was actually owned by a family in Amarillo, Texas.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah. Hastings carved out a really good niche in smaller towns.
Yep.
By selling music and renting videos and selling books as well. And it was kind of a all entertainment kind of store.
Yeah.
That did very well in smaller markets.
Yeah,
they weren't related at all.
I loved going there. I even worked there for one summer when I lived in Bozeman, Montana. It was another great store. So Built to Fail. When is the book coming out again?
The official launch date is March the 9th. Okay. March the 9th. I got my first copies in the mail today, so I'm pretty excited. I'm actually holding one in my hand.
Nice.
For someone that's never written a book, I'm not sure I would recommend that you do it, but because it's a big job, but it's been real gratifying. It really has.
So you tackled it yourself, no ghostwriting?
No ghostwriting at all.
Nice.
I worked with a company. In fact, if anybody out there is contemplating writing a book but can't get a traditional publishing deal, which I couldn't, a company called Fenix Media that happens to be located here in Austin, where I live, is a great company to work with on these kind of. They've published several hundred books, and they really hold your hand from beginning to end and allow you to focus on the things that you know, which are your subject matter, and leave the publishing part of it to them.
Very cool.
And it's a really good company, and that's who I work with to do this.
Allison is perfect. I mean, she'd never tell you that. She's humble and perfect. She likes everyone. She even likes her untidy roommate's weird guinea pig. Allison, wait, are Are you? Texting and driving? Allison, no. That's the exact opposite of what I was just saying about you. Why, Allison? Why? Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn to spot a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. I'm Paul George. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
My name is Lola Silvestri, and I'm going to be 95 this year. I was very independent. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Fenix Media. Listen live and explore more great shows at fenixmedia.us.
I was actually just thinking, Hollywood's made a couple movies about the discovery of McDonald's and the creation of the dictionary of Mel Gibson. What if they make a movie based on your book?
That would be great, wouldn't it?
It would be.
The thing is, though, I don't know what the hook would be. McDonald's, the hook was Ray Kroc, right?
Yep, it was.
And I saw that movie. It's called The Founder.
Yep.
I really enjoyed it. If you told the story of Blockbuster, it would have to start with Wayne Huizenga.
You'd have to start with the rise of it, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a phenomenon. I don't know exactly how that story gets told. One of my concerns about this book is it's a business story. I think it's a subject matter that a lot of people are familiar with, and I hope that people that typically don't read business books will have an interest in it, because I think most people from that generation, Blockbuster was a part of their lives.
Yep.
Or a video store of some type was a part of their lives, and this will give them a real window into what it was like. And really, I hope people leave it with, what would have happened had it been different? Would there still be some around? Because there's still a lot of people that miss it.
Oh, for sure, I miss it all the time. I mean, just seeing the logo, it makes me happy just to see the logo.
Yeah, I mean, the quote in the introduction of the book, Quentin Tarantino goes, he talks about the video store. He's not sure why it went away, because it served such a useful purpose that, did it go away because Blockbuster screwed it up and the industry in general screwed it up, or because there was just no market for it? clearly the market was declining, but I'm not sure Blockbuster would be gone right now if it had been managed differently.
Yep.
And certainly it could have been, it had everything in its favor to be Netflix instead of Reed Hastings being Netflix. Blockbuster, as I tell the story in the book, if you think about the amount of information they had about movie watching, hundreds of millions of rentals, and they knew who watched them and when, and they knew in-depth demographic information on all those people, about as deep as they wanted to go. That was much more information than the Hollywood studios ever had, because their research was screenings and taking polls outside of theaters. Very archaic. They didn't, it was Blockbuster. They had specific information on what every demographic group watched and when. If anybody was in a position to have figured out what was going to come next, it was Blockbuster. But their lack of interest in why people watch things, I think, just opened the door to somebody like Reed Hastings with Netflix, who was a math wonk, and he basically just followed the customer. He figured out that if he did it right, they would watch old movies and be happy, and they're still doing it for the most part.
Yep.
If you go to any of the streaming services out there now, including Netflix, so much of the content is old.
Yeah.
In all the years, I guess that was the most frustrating thing for me, because we built our stores on that basis. We rented new releases, and we rented just as many of them as Blockbuster did, but we also rented the old stuff. And that was a part of the business that Blockbuster never did understand, and it made them really vulnerable to somebody like Netflix, who did. And it was very frustrating for me to watch that happen.
Do you remember some of your best renters when you had your store?
Well, yeah. In fact, you'd have people that would, they would be in the store almost every day. In fact, in some cases, your really heavy renters, it was like, hey, maybe you should get a life, instead of being in here almost every day. It was, but there was a lot of people that would spend an hour or two in one of our stores almost every day, because they lived movies, and that was where you did it.
Yep.
It was just to be in a store surrounded by 20,000 movies and all the other people around you that loved it, including the employees and the other geeky friends of theirs that would come in and talk movies all day. It was a community atmosphere, really.
It was like a chat room nowadays.
Yeah. Except live and face to face. And the great thing is that, from a business perspective, it was so great to run stores because it attracted people that loved movies, and it was a fun environment to work in. So it was easy to put together teams of people that were really interested in movies, and that just made the experience that much better for customers.
Well, it's definitely a shame we lost that, because Blockbuster is one of my favorite companies. Toys R Us is another one, unfortunately, but I guess they can't stick around forever.
Yeah, I wish it could have been different. I wish Blockbuster would have figured out the streaming part of it and built that business on with the benefit of everything that they would have learned off of renting DVDs, but it wasn't to be. And there's a long history of companies that didn't transition to what was next. Blockbuster's among thousands of them.
Circuit City.
So it's not like they did something that that hasn't been done.
Exactly.
It's really, really hard. I think to see what's coming next, and to be there before a Reed Hastings was there.
Yep.
And if they'd have done everything perfect, it would have still been hard. I know that, but I guess the frustrating thing to me was I felt like they didn't even give themselves a chance.
Yeah.
Because early in the process, Netflix knew more about movie watching than Blockbuster did, and used their knowledge of the business to beat who should have been the king of that. But instead of Blockbuster understanding the business and running their stores like a Blockbuster, they started trying to be Netflix in a Blockbuster store. And that was literally impossible to do. It couldn't be done. It was a completely different business model. And as Blockbuster in the early 2000s started, they finally were forced to take Netflix seriously. And every answer that they had to try to beat Netflix, all they were doing was playing Netflix's game. They went to subscription, which was very difficult to do in a store where the customer got to pick instead of Netflix got to pick.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, the way Netflix made the whole business model work was the queue system, and they got to pick what they sent you. Now they had to send you what you wanted eventually, but it might not be exactly when you wanted it.
Yeah,
that was a weakness of their part. It was a weakness that they couldn't get new releases to you the first week or two when they were out for the most part. Those were all things that Blockbuster could have exploited, and that's what we did in our stores. But instead, by the time Netflix became big enough that they were really having an impact, Blockbuster had fewer new releases available in the stores than in the entire history of the company. And they had the worst availability of catalog movies in the history of the company, literally. And I saw the numbers, I knew. And it was so everything that they needed to be doing in order to keep Blockbuster strong in the face of Netflix and then later Redbox, they had weakened the stores. So it was inevitable. I mean, I knew in 2005 when Blockbuster decided to eliminate late fees, I knew that was the end. That was it. Because you could not run a rental business not knowing when your movies were coming back.
Exactly. Yep.
And I know that late fees were kind of a scourge to people, particularly the way Blockbuster managed them. But the fact is, it's no different than going to Avis Rent-A-Car. You can't keep the car as long as you want and not have to pay for it. You have to take it back or you're going to get an extra charge. It's just, that's the way it works. It was the same way in a video store, and it could have been managed in such a more positive way rather than eliminating them. But when they eliminated them, they completely lost control of their inventory. And I knew right then, that was 5 years before they filed bankruptcy. I knew right then that was it. It was over. Unless they changed, there was no way they were going to survive. Mm-hmm. They could not afford to put enough product in the store when they didn't know when it was coming back. That's when I knew that it was done. And then we were just, of course, we ran our stores for another 18 years after that.
Wow.
Blockbuster filed bankruptcy, of course, in 2010. And even though they didn't close the last store until 2014 after Dish, of all people, had bought them, it was inevitable.
Well, that's a shame, but I guess you wouldn't have your book if they were still together now.
I'd lots rather be still in the business.
Exactly.
It ended before its time.
Yeah. And where can people find the book?
It's on Amazon. It's actually there now. As I'm learning, Amazon kind of runs the show in this. Most books get bought on Amazon now, and it's there. It's in Kindle, paperback and hardback.
Oh, awesome.
And it will also be available just about anywhere else books are sold online. Over the next week or two, it'll be available everywhere.
Very nice.
And remains to be seen if it'll wind up physically in bookstores. Might not. Hopefully it does. But almost all books are sold online, so it'll be anywhere anybody's looking for a book online.
Well, very cool, and I do recommend it highly.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Of course. Yeah, I'm going to definitely finish that up to hear, because you said it gets better, and it's already pretty awesome as it is. So if it gets better, I need to keep reading it.
Well, that's great to hear. Most people that have read it tell me it gets better as it goes. Okay. Because it gets, you're barely into the Netflix part.
Yep, exactly.
And then, most people don't know that Redbox was started by McDonald's. So that's something you'll find out too.
I do remember when McDonald's used to sell VHSs in the store, for $5 more you can get Field of Dreams.
That's right. I remember that. That wasn't a very popular move.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I bought a couple movies. I think I got Back to the Future and Field of Dreams. I think those are the two that I bought.
They did that. The studios were behind that. They thought they could. That was another one of their ways of trying to weaken video stores. I think that's another thing. I think that's another thing that people will learn in the book is that the studios fought the rental business from the beginning. They tried to stop it before it even started.
I was reading that part and I was like, you know what? I thought studios liked people watching their videos at home, but no, I guess not. Because I do remember Walt Disney doing interviews, and he was always for putting stuff on TV, but other studios were so against it because they wouldn't go to the theaters to watch the movies. But Walt Disney's like, no, I'm going to put them on the TV because there's more of an audience on TV. So it makes sense that the studios wouldn't like people like watching their movies at home.
They wanted total control of it, and what they learned is that back then it was before video. You'd have your theatrical run, and eventually we stand around and we wait for it to show up on network television, complete with all the commercials.
Yep.
And that was the cycle. What the studios found out is the business was much, much larger. The demand for their product was exponentially larger than they ever dreamed. And that's what the video stores taught them. And this proliferation of movies everywhere all began with video stores. Had the studios had their way, number one, the VCR would have been illegal. And it only was not illegal because of a 5-4 decision by the Supreme Court. Otherwise, it would not even been legal. And then after that, they tried to outlaw the video store. There was a bill before Congress that would have outlawed the video store in the 80s. But by then, kind of the train had left the station, and Congress never voted on it. So that's what made the video store legal, and it had been really built. The industry had been built largely by entrepreneurs, many of whom were undercapitalized. And that's what paved the way for a guy like Wayne Huizenga to come in and just take over the business because he knew how to raise money and how to ramp up a company faster than anybody in the business at that time. And he just took it over.
Well, all right, Alan, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Anything else you wanted to add about the book?
Well, we covered a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much more.
Yeah, I think it's a great story, and I think I hope people find it interesting.
I hope so too. I really do. I hope so too. Hopefully, you get a good turnout of people wanting to read the book because it is a great book so far.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. Enjoyed
Absolutely.
visiting with you about it.
All right, yeah, me too, man. Appreciate your time, and very fascinating. It really is very fascinating.
Well, let me know when you finish it. Let me know if it got better or got worse or whatever.
Absolutely. All right, man. Thanks so much for your time. You take care. All right.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.